All right, welcome back to the channel. I have to admit, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. So if that affects my energy, so be it. I had my second COVID shot, and so it kind of threw me for a loop. A lot of like fever, lymph nodes, all that. A little bit sweating here, but wanted to do a video nonetheless. Right? I've really enjoyed this. First thing is I want to thank people for subscribing. I was just at 70 subscribers a few weeks ago, and now I'm at 141 subscribers. So really appreciate that. Having a lot of fun doing the videos. And so today's video, what I wanted to discuss is investing software. And I did a video a little while back. I think it's like maybe 5 websites I use as a millionaire investor. And it made me think of actually this book. This is, for those of you who don't know, this is a Victor Niederhoffer, The Education of a Speculator. I believe the YouTuber Patrick Boyle studied under him when he was a young man, first starting out. And Niederhoffer is very much aligned with Soros, very much a trader, speculator. And I also associate him with Nassim Nicholas Taleb. I think with a Taleb, a Niederhoffer, a Soros, not only are they trader speculators as opposed to investors, one. Two is I think that they are as much intellectuals as investors. And Taleb actually makes that point with Soros. I don't know if he was making it as a backhanded compliment or what, but he basically said to the effect of Soros sees himself as a good Eastern European intellectual whose investing is just a small part of his intellectual life. And I think one could say the same for Taleb. I think one could say the same for Niederhoffer. They're a little bit more than just investors, Excel spreadsheet, so on and so forth. But the reason I bring up Niederhoffer is not to kind of compare and contrast Niederhoffer, Taleb, Soros with, let's say, Warren and Charlie at Berkshire, more of a business-driven investor. It's really, there's a passage in this book, The Education of a Speculator, when a software salesman came to his office and said, look, I have this great software that's going to improve your investing. It does, I don't remember exactly what that particular software did, but it was, a software that would help improve your investing. And Niederhoffer just kind of poo-pooed it and looked down on it. And he just thought, like, the 1% investors aren't going to use a common software. And so that's the premise of the video today is, for me, my CAGR is 30%. And that's fine because we're in a bull market. Is that going to last? I don't know. But I would say that my CAGR is 30% because of the software that I use. The software really helps inform my investing and so on and so forth. And I'm not a software salesman, so I'm not affiliated with any of these companies that I'm about to mention, though I would love to be affiliated with Composer, by the way. I would love to get some equity in that company. I love that one. That's a newer one, but that's a whole different story. But so just to give you a sense, I use Guru Focus here. I'm just going to pull up Guru Focus. And these are some of their screens. The two that I like, well, there's 3 really, but the one that I like the most is the undervalued predictable. For a while, a lot of the Canadian banks, and it looks like they're still here. You can see here, Toronto Dominion Bank, Bank of Montreal. But yeah, they were listed like top 4 or 5, and they've compounded for me tremendously. What's interesting is you see Allstate here on the Guru Focus undervalued predictable screen. If I pull up Buffett Munger, I also see Allstate. So this is exactly what I'm looking for when I do my screens, when I use software like this. Is I'm looking for patterns and commonality. So I see that Allstate is showing up on the Buffett Munger screener. I also see it on the undervalued predictable. Now I'll go over to Zacks. So when I'm looking through Zacks value screens, If Allstate happens to appear on a Zacks value screen that's essentially uncorrelated, meaning it's a different type of way they're analyzing valuations, that's going to jump out at me. So you have different ones here. Let's just these are some of the different value screens. This is a price to earnings growth. So it actually isn't showing up right now in a lot of these different value screens I already checked. But, just going through these screens on, a daily or weekly basis is quite helpful, because your brain's just going to start to make associations and start to recognize patterns. So that's Guru Focus and Zacks. And then I come over here, and this is bar chart, which I use for my option strategies, my ping pong, which many people call the wheel strategy that I employed. And the other one that I'm looking at here is Fast Graphs. I haven't joined this one yet, but this is, I think his name is Chuck Carnival. I'm mispronouncing his name. I'm sure. I'm sorry in advance for that. But he really does some wonderful videos using their software. So one of the things I will do when I do purchase Fast Graphs is think about it. I see Allstate on those two screens. I'm going to then pull it up on Fast Graphs and see what its intrinsic value is, see what its blended PE is versus the I think he calls like the gram dot or just the gram PE, which is usually around 15, and then just sort of analyze it on that software. So you can see I'm kind of like a software geek, a screen geek with a lot of these things, and yeah, I feel that it's really, just by buying the Canadian banks, because they were on those screens, they've done tremendously. And then obviously I just mentioned it here, my new favorite software, Composer. And this is interesting because I have my Guru Focus, my bar chart, soon to be my Fast Graphs, my Zacks for fundamental value investing, and Composer is for my more Jim Simmons, Rentec, DE Shaw, Two Sigma quant investing. So I built strategies out based on back testing and patterns that I can construct without knowing Python, without knowing how to sync Python code into an API, not really knowing those things, but Composer allows me to create these systems of trading here, and these are just some. I'm only running one because they're not multi-symphony just yet, but they're on the way to that. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today. Maybe I'll just kind of circle back to Niederhoffer here, but yeah, I just find that like with the Niederhoffer, Taleb, Soros, they're these intellectuals who are also investors, where I find that a lot of fundamental value guys are more business driven, or more business analysis, the weighing machine versus the voting machine. There's a lot of Benjamin Graham, David Dodd with those guys. Whereas the speculators, another commonality that I found is that a lot of fundamental value guys are purely focused on stocks, or mainly focused on stocks, where a lot of the speculator trader types are more engrossed in currency and commodity. So that's another thing that I've noticed, like you see with Soros, with Niederhoffer, like they're like kind of macro guys. There are a lot of macro guys following interest rates, geopolitical events, and some of the other guys are just, one of Monish Pabri's dictates, he's essentially descended from Warren and Charlie, is avoid all macro. Whereas you think of like Nouriel Rubini, you think of Mohammed El Arian, you think of Niederhoffer, these guys, they're a lot of macro guys. So it's kind of like global macro trader speculator contra fundamental business driven investors. And so it's just interesting. It's almost like you see it in religions, right? You see in different religions, they have sects and sects within sects, like, so you see in Islam, they have the Sunni and the Shia. And then in Judaism, they have different rabbis that interpret it in a certain way. And one sect is a follower of this particular rabbi, and the other is a follower of this rabbi. And in Christianity, you have the Protestants, you have the Catholics. So I kind of see that in the investing world, that there's all these different kind of pathways, and it doesn't mean that anyone is right or the way. And that's why I consider myself a syncretic investor, as I fuse what one might view antithetical, disparate philosophies into what I see as a coherent strategy. So this right here on the screen, Composer, is descended from Jim Simmons at Rentec and D.E. Shaw and Two Sigma and quantitative investors. And then when I go to Fast Graphs, that's descended from Benjamin Graham, David Dodd, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Chuck Akre, Monish Pabri, Phil Town, Guy Spier, et cetera, more of a value, business-driven style investor. In fact, I remember reading this book, and let's see if I can pull it up here. It's on page 152, and he says this line here, and it stuck out. One of the world's most famous speculators, Warren Buffett, personifies Mr. Market as the omniscient player opponent in an almost identical fashion. And I thought to myself, and I crossed out the word speculator and wrote investors, because I think someone like Warren Buffett or Charlie Munger, or, Monish Pabri or value guys would take umbrage with being called a speculator. I think that Niederhoffer really didn't do his homework here on really understanding and doing a deep dive in Buffett, because he essentially called him a speculator, which I think would be a misrepresentation of the style of Buffett, of how he approaches allocating capital. But anyway, so that's it for today. Let's see. There's one other thing that I wanted to mention. I was having a conversation with someone who was talking about, the Delta variant and COVID and Afghanistan and what's going here and what's going on in Canada and what's going on in this place. And I think that one of the things that I've done throughout my life that has helped me is I avoid journalists and follow intellectuals, writers. So what do I mean by that? By avoiding the 24-hour news cycle and doing deep reading, and people like a Niederhoffer and people like a Taleb and people like, and I actually have this book here, and it's another aside, because I view a Taleb kind of as like a modern version of this is Camille Paglia here. Taleb very much has a Camille Paglia vibe to him. He likes to throw Molotov cocktails. For Paglia, it was Derrida, Lacan, Foucault. For Taleb, it's he has a lot of enemies. I don't know, like Pinker. Pinker's one he likes to throw Molotov cocktails at. But just sort of that abrasive, cantankerous intellectual. But anyways, yeah. So that's just one of the things that I've done is by not following the news, but following ideas. There's the cliche, minds are of three types. The first discuss people, the second discuss events, and the third discuss ideas. And so instead of having that second type of mind, having more of that third type of mind, really being focused on ideas and just sort of avoiding the noise outside. And I used that line when I was having this conversation. I said, focus is bliss. Because the person was saying, well, ignorance, by putting your head in a book, in a way you could say that ignorance is bliss. You're not engaged with Kabul, Afghanistan. You're not engaged with the Uyghurs in China. You're not engaged with what's going on in Iraq or Iran or Venezuela. So you're very focused. You're focused on your own. And it's funny that Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, when they met, when they were asked their secret to success, I believe that both of them wrote the word focus. And so being focused intellectually has really helped me block out the noise and succeed in life. And so, take that for what it's worth. And I said that line, ignorance isn't bliss, focus is bliss. So, that's kind of a cool little saying, focus is bliss. So there it is for today. Hoping I'm feeling a little bit better the next few days after the second shot. But take care. Happy investing. Ciao.